Hello, and on behalf of Power Street Theater, welcome to Power Talks. My name is Alyson Cadena, and I will be your host as we celebrate Women's History Month, where we are spotlighting some incredible female-identifying artists. So I'd like you to welcome today's guest, Rebecca Aparicio. I need to get like a studio audience sound. I say that every time. Rebecca, welcome. We are so excited to have you. I'm going to give just a quick synopsis of who this person is because I think the audience deserves to, just give you your flowers. So Rebecca is a New York-based bilingual director and writer. She is an artist in residence of the Latinx Playwright Circle, a steering committee member of the Latinx Theater Commons, a board member at Rhinebeck Writers Retreat, board member of the Flea Theater, and a founding member of Magic Forest Theater, creating musicals for young audiences. She's a co-producer of the podcast This Is Reality, which was recently named New and Noteworthy by Apple Podcasts. So obviously done a lot of amazing things. I noticed a lot of amazing Latinx stuff, which is, exciting for me as a fellow Latinx person. I guess my first question for you, Rebecca, is just about in reading your bio and seeing like the work that you take on. You do a lot of these like amazing cultural works, and our artistic mission and statement says that as a Cuban American artist in America, I am constantly asking myself, what does it mean to create art right now in this moment? So I found it so interesting because it seems like you're very intentional about the projects that you're working on, right? So can you tell us more about like what inspired that mission and kind of how it plays into your day to day as an artist and the things that you're working on?
Yeah, totally. I think that statement really grew out of a sense of urgency for me as an artist to be really clear about the work that I want to do. I started I was always I was started out as an actor, but I was always directing and writing at the same time. I kind of always knew that I wanted to do a version of three, and that really shifted for me to strictly directing and writing when I was commissioned to write this show in 2015, a musical. And the only parameters were that it needed to be about something about relating to my cultural identity and tying it into a fairy tale in some way. And that show became a musical called Pedro Pan that was loosely based on my parents' experience of coming to the US as young children in the 1960s. The story is based on children that came unaccompanied. My parents didn't come unaccompanied, but they had that similar experience of coming to this country as young children and having to relearn, a new language, a new culture. And that moment of getting to tell my story was the first moment that I felt like I had a place in the theater. Because up at that point, I was trying to like fit this mold of, what it meant to be like a musical theater artist or an artist who had been in Alabama with like no other Latinos around. And so being able to see folks like me on stage and knowing I had the power to make that happen and to create opportunities where I never had opportunities kind of became like what I wanted to do. And I never want to lose sight of that. And so for me, it's really important to remember that my goal is to like change the theater canon and to give other folks, including folks outside of the Latinx identity, folks of just the global majority that don't get to see themselves as much represented on stage, to be able to champion that work and be an advocate for that work is really, really important to me. So yeah, that's kind of why I put that front and center. And I've had some producers say that that's really scary to them. And I've also had producers say like, this is why I reached out to you. So it's a really good way for me to like, just stay really in alignment of the work that I want to do.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think sometimes we worry like, am I limiting myself? Am I pigeonholing myself? But like you mentioned, like that can actually be a great way to like get your name out there and like people will recognize you for that when the opportunity arises, so it can actually open doors at the same time. But I found it interesting that you said you started as an actor and then you went into writing. And so it's a lot of your work now is directing based. And I was just curious how that like jump happened, or like did you feel that you could like maybe serve the community better as a director, or like what was the change there?
Yeah, so I moved into New York in 2009, like whoa, long time ago. And when I got here, a group of my college friends and I, we all had gone to school where original musicals, competed against each other, and so we came from this culture of like creating your own work, and so we hit the ground running when we first got here, and we're writing short musicals and entering in festivals. And defaultly, I would always become the director. I was always kind of like the person leading the group. I was also in it as an actor, and as I was doing those shows, I just always found myself more stimulated, more like excited about the way that it works. And like the singing was really fun for me. The having to focus on only one thing was so boring to me as like being an actor. I think an actor is so hard, and I'm not saying that it's a boring to do. Like so much respect for actors because it takes such intense focus. And I just love thinking about five things at the same time. And also like getting to lead and steer the ship just felt like, yes, that is the way that I can serve the community, and like how I know I can be of service, and that is how I know I can show up as all of me versus just like one little part of me.
Right, that's so true, and we have to give directors their flowers because you have to not just make sure that the actors are committed and, like, honoring the character, but also, like, are we honoring the whole story? Are they, like, meshing well together? Is it believable? Are we communicating, what we wanted to communicate? So that is a big undertaking, and if it's for you, it's for you. Couldn't be me, but you very
Yeah.
talented folks that can do it. We appreciate you. I do want to ask you, so you are also directing Siluetas, which is a Power Street Theater project in June 2024. Can you tell us a little bit about that project, but just in the scope of also like that mission statement that you have? What is it about Siluetas that's so pertinent now that you decided like this is a story that needs to be told?
Yeah, I think ever since Arlena came to me, shout out to Arlena, leader of Power Street Theater with Gabby Sanchez. I love them both so much. She came to me about this project in 2021. We did a Zoom reading that first year, and I was, of course, drawn to the story because it featured a Cuban immigrant who in 2016 is embarking on the first journey of herself as a newly divorced woman finding her way in Philadelphia, and how she ends up rooming with this Syrian immigrant, and how they both end up having to share this new experience of being not in their native homeland, but how they help each other redefine what home is, since they both can't go back to where they're from. And Erlina so brilliantly said it in 2016, which as each year goes on, it feels further and further away, and also so present as we face this new election going into 2024. Remembering that feeling was in 2016, the fear of all the xenophobia, of all the really negative statements about immigrations, particularly in both of the countries that our lead protagonists are from. And what I have found of working on it since 2021 is that each year the issues become more and more pertinent and more important to talk about. We're seeing such displacement right now, and we really felt that heavy in our hearts in November when we did the concert at Theater Horizon. And I just feel so honored to be a part of this piece. It means so much to me on a personal level to reconnect with my human identity in a deeper and more meaningful way, but also to tell this really important story about what does it mean to be displaced when you don't want to be displaced. There's so much out there about people that come to this country and like, taking our jobs, and all this narrative of like America is so great and we have so much to offer. which in some ways that is true. But there is also this reality that a lot of people don't want to leave their homes. A lot of people don't want to be away from their homeland, away from their family. There is just no safety where they come from. And I think that giving voice to that very specific narrative is really, really important.
I think you touched on it a little, but my question, I think, kind of relates to this idea of was it difficult at all? You've worked on Latinx projects, you've told the immigrant story in different ways. Was it difficult, though, to incorporate characters that weren't of a Latinx background that were going through this? Or was like the similarities in the immigrant experience enough to kind of like ease that ease that storytelling?
I think what's so compelling is that the immigrant experience, regardless of your cultural identity or what country of origin, is so similar. There is this hope, and also this longing for your homeland that I think that Siluetas captures so well. That transcends language, that transcends space. Everyone can identify what it means to remember the place where you're from, whatever that means. Like if you've had to create that because where you're from does not fulfill you or is not a safe place, but we can all relate to this idea of home and what it would mean like to have that anymore. And I think that regardless of cultural identity, that story is the same. And so to me, it's not difficult at all to sympathize. Like I think to me, all refugees, all immigrants, all folks that have had to flee their land have that global experience.
Right. I do want to pivot a little bit. We are celebrating Women's History Month, and I'm always curious to find out how on these conversations, how your womanhood has kind of played into your career as an artist, whether that be the projects you take on or the experience that you've had along the way, just getting a better understanding of what it means to you to be a female artist.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really lucky to have really incredible female mentors as folks that I have been able to study under as their assistants and their associates. I've predominantly worked with women. And in this industry, it is, even though things have changed quite a bit, it is still a challenge to be a director and to be a woman. To me, it's what makes me powerful as a director is my womanhood, because of my ability to empathize and my ability to hold space outside of myself, that I think really saying that men can't do that or folks on the gender spectrum can't do that. But I think that for me personally, I think that very much comes from my womanhood of wanting to create a safe space, a space that is intentional and that is welcoming. And so you feel like that is specific to, you know, being a woman. Not that other folks can't create safe space, but for me, that's how it shows up.
Right. I love that. And even the idea of like being like a caretaker, you know, somewhat by nature, you know, the director has to care for everybody on that project and then care for the story as well. So I definitely see how that can be. You mentioned about how it can also make you feel powerful, which was like the perfect segue to our final question, which is, when do you feel the most powerful? And that could be whether as an artist, whether in, you know, in your directing and writing or, you know, any of those fields, or just like as a person, like in your day to day.
Yeah, I think when I feel most powerful is when I feel connected and in tune with my intuition. And I feel that so strongly when I'm working on a piece that I connect to on an emotional, spiritual, if we're gonna get like all woo-woo about it, way, especially in the way that I connect to Siluetas. Like it just feels so natural to me to be in space with this piece. It's like, I don't know, I tell Arlena and Robbie this a lot, that I just feel so honored because the music speaks to me in a way that all other music doesn't. Arlena's words, the characters that she writes speaks to me in a very specific way. They're like people that I know in my heart. And so when I'm in that space, in those type of spaces where I'm like connected to the piece, where I'm connected to the humans making the art, that's when I feel like I do it all. It's just so exciting. And I just feel like all the things have aligned, the type of work that I want to do, the work itself being powerful, and then being in a space with like really awesome people. Like that's when I feel like, yeah, let's do this.
For sure. I think there's definitely projects where you're like, I'm supposed to be here. Like there's a sense of purpose and there's also a sense of like community and support of like, not only am I supposed to be here doing this, but I'm supposed to be doing it with these people. And that's always an amazing experience.